Good afternoon, art friends, and welcome to another episode of Mr. O'Neill's art class on YouTube, continuing our week that is a special salute to construction and to the building trades and the building arts. Is a lot of people have been asking me is like, why are you spending this time working on building and this art? Well, let me answer that with another question that people ask me all the time. Is they always tell me I want to be an artist, but my first question is, what kind of artist do you want to be? And there's tons of artists other than painters and people who draw and illustrators and photographers. And another one of those kind of artists in my mind are craftsmen or woodworkers, people who create things out of wood, furniture and all sorts of other stuff. And so we're going to be exploring that topic today. So we're here in my art studio south. Welcome to Mr. O'Neill's garage, which is a lot like Mr. O'Neill's art studio, and Mr. O'Neill's art classroom. There's a place for everything and absolutely nothing is in its place. But we have all the basic things that we're going to work on. So today, what we are going to make is we are going to make a squirrel picnic table. Yes, I said that correctly. A squirrel picnic table. Not a picnic table in the shape of a squirrel, but a picnic table for squirrels. And I'm going to do that because on the internet, if you've looked around a little bit or if you follow anything about woodworking, is woodworkers are home too. Woodworkers are quarantined just like you and me, and woodworkers are bored out of their mind. So a ton of woodworkers have started making little feeders for squirrels, a place for the squirrels to go and they eat, but they're making them in the shape of picnic tables. So if the little squirrel sits on it, it looks hilarious. So we are going to make today a squirrel picnic table. And this is something really difficult for you kids to follow along with by yourself. It's not something that you should try. Let me say that again. It's not something you should try by yourself. Let me say that again. It's not something you should try by yourself. But if you have a parent or a grandparent at home who has some wood tools and is an accomplished woodworker, this is not a really difficult task and you can totally help. And that would be a great thing. So if you have an adult and you are going to try and follow along with this video later, you are going to need a few things. And I'm going to go ahead and play them in a separate little clip right now. Alright, so like I said before, we're going to be using just scrap wood for this, and that's the greatest thing about it, is it's just things you have lying around. This is some hardwood scraps that I had. I actually went back and got out of the art room. It's stuff that we had for building various projects. It's not all the right size. So the first thing we have to do before we can actually start building is start cutting. We're going to take these and we're going to take this piece, which is a little bit too thick, and we're going to make it into little thin strips like this that will be the seed and the top of our squirrel picnic table. So we're going to do that by using the table saw. So I'm going to go over there in just a sec and I'm going to get it set. I'm going to make all the measurements and get everything dialed in just right and then start making the cuts. I'm going to do that in fast motion speed so you don't have to wait through the whole thing. But I do want to tell you this, is you notice I got my hard hat on. That's just for looks. That's just for me being silly. You don't really need that in the garage here. Got my tool belt on, which is handy for keeping your tape measure and your pencil, all of those things in easy reach. But what you do need before you start any of this cutting or sawing or nailing sort of thing is you need to remember the first rule of first thing that you need. No more important piece of safety gear than these your safety glasses. Always wear your safety glasses when you are woodworking. You never know when a splinter or a spark's going to fly off, or that nail's going to hit and ricochet, do crazy, crazy things. So make sure that you are wearing your safety glasses. Shout out to Norm from this old house. Ask your grandparents. So here we are at our table saw, and I have a skill saw table saw, and we are going to cut these pieces of wood down to get them all the right dimensions. And we're going to do that just by running them through here. I've got a little setup and stuff to do before I can do that. So you guys watch as I go to fast speed now. I forgot before I started that to introduce you to my friend here. This is a push stick, and this push stick is what helps me, you saw in the video, is keep my fingers way away from this blade. I never want my fingers anywhere close to the blade on the table saw, and this is one of those reasons why you must have an adult that knows how to do this to help you if you want to follow along with this project. So always use a push stick. I actually made this myself. They do sell them, but if you've got some scrap wood around, you can make your own as well. All right, so now that I've used the table saw, I've got all of my wood, this scrap wood, cut out to be the same dimensions. It's the same thickness, all of them, but it's not cut to the right length. So to cut things to the right length, we could use a special attachment for the table saw, and we could cross cut on that if that's all you've got. We could have, again, used the same thing. We could have used, and this is good for the kids, you could use a handsaw. You could do the exact same thing with that handsaw and get it, and that is a lot safer for children to use, but still requires adult supervision. You have to have somebody who knows what they're doing to help you out with that. So now we've got to cut these to length, and we want to get, the right length for the picnic table side, top. We want to get the right length for the picnic table legs, and we want to have the right length for the bench, the seat. So we're going to cut them, and we're going to use a different tool this time. If you have one, I highly recommend it. We are going to use a compound miter saw. And this miter saw is just going to allow us to go up and down and cut it even. It's another saw that's very important that you have to be very safe with. Wear your safety glasses and have adult help, okay? Do not do this project without the adult help. So right now I'm going to measure these. We want to use our tape measure, all right, and this is where it comes in handy to have your tool belt. I just pulled it right off. We are going to measure and mark each one of these boards before we go to the miter saw. So I'm going to take my tape measure out, and this is definitely something that all you kids can help with, is take the tape out, you're going to measure it, and then we're going to square it up. So I'm going to go to the table saw and just use a flat surface and show you that. So now, like I said, we need to measure out so we can make our cuts. So I'm going to measure enough for the top. I'm going to use my tape measure that I have right here. I'm going to lock it down here, and I'm going to say each one of our top pieces, we want it to be 8 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that at 8 inches right there. I'm going to put a little bitty mark right at the 8-inch mark, and I like to put that little pointy mark so you know exactly where it is. And now to make sure that mark is exactly straight, I'm going to use this other tool that you might not have heard of before. This is called a square. And this is a carpenter square or framing square. It's a pretty small one. And I know it's not a square, it's an L. But it helps us make a squared off mark so our things are perfectly square or rectangular in this case. So I'm going to lay it on there, slide it right up to my mark, and I can go right down the edge of it. All right, now I've made my mark. You see, whoops, wrong side. See that mark right there? And I'm going to cut on that for every single one of these so I can get them all right. So I'm going to speed it up right now so you can see me marking the rest of these. Now that we have everything marked, we can go ahead and go to the miter saw and make these cuts. what I did was I cut out 3 8-inch pieces for the top of the picnic table and 2 8-inch pieces that are going to be the bench on either side. We're going to do the other supports and other things later, and we'll use the scraps off of these boards. All right, so here on my miter saw, you can clearly see that we have these spots here where do not put your hands. You don't want to put your hands beyond that so you can get in and keep yourself safe. And again, boys and girls, say it with me, don't do this without an adult. So let's go ahead and let's cut. So I've got my benches and my top cut, and I didn't mention that when I measured these before, I also got 3 cross pieces here that are going to be absolutely perfect to set up to be the braces for the tabletops. Now they're very small. If you didn't come up with those, then you can cut 3 pieces at 3 1/4 inches long, and that's going to work out for you. Do that. I also didn't mention, if you don't have access to this kind of scrap wood or this stuff or a table saw to make it this way, you can completely use something about the same shape. Use some wood like some paint stir sticks, that sort of thing, and you can do the same. Rulers, old rulers that are broken if you have them, you can use that exact same sort of thing to build this project as well. So again, 3 for the tabletop, 1 for each bench. I've got 3 at 3 1/4 inches right there, and it doesn't have to be exactly the size either. It's your squirrel bench. You make it how you want it. Okay, so I got a few more cuts that I'm going to do, and I am going to make some angled cuts, which is the great thing about this miter saw, is because I can press one little button and I can slide the angle that it cuts at. So I'm going to cut a few of these off at an angle that are going to be our legs and our bench supports. So by the time I got those measured out to where they want to be, the legs, I need to cut 4 legs, but I need to cut them 3 1/4 inches long, but at a 30-degree angle. And that's way too close than I wanted to get my fingers to that compound miter saw. So I'm going to use this, which is a miter box, which is just a saw mounted in this little stand. It's a hand saw to keep you that perfect angle. And this, again, adults, it's up to you, but this might be something that the kids could help do, because there's going to be a lot of arm work in there to get this thing going. So I'm going to speed that up again and show you the results. Last thing to cut are going to be your brackets, the support, the things that are going to hold up the benches for the picnic table. So I'm going to cut 2 of these right here at 7 inches this time, 2 at 7 inches, and then and those are going to have a 30-degree angle as well. So for that, back to the compound miter saw. All right, so we've got all of our pieces cut out. Now it's time for assembly. So when we go to put these together, you can use a little bit of wood glue. You can totally glue them together. If you just glue them together, probably for this purpose, it will stay. You can just use little tack nails and a hammer, perfect job for the kids. Nail them together, or just for speed's sake, you can do what I am going to do, which is go ahead and take your nail gun. This is a brad nailer. It shoots little bitty nails right there. And I'm going to probably glue and nail mine together because it makes it just that much stronger. And I'm going to want to have this out here in the weather, and it's going to last a good little while. So glue and screw, or glue and, in this case, brad nail. So before we go and do that, I'm going to go ahead and lay everything down here and get everything laid down on the floor of my shop. Get everything down here because it's a nice big flat surface. Don't need it quite as much for a squirrel picnic table. You could do that on a table or something else a little bit smaller. But I'm going to go ahead and go down to the floor so I don't make a mess. So I've got a nice flat surface. And I am going to pull up the most important tool in my shop. Whew. which are some leftover buckets that I'm going to use for a nice little stool when I do a lot of this. So if you got it buckets, save them. Make a great little seat when you're ready and you're doing this work. So I did end up changing my mind just a little bit because that floor is awfully low right now, even sitting down here on this bucket. So what I've done is I have gotten another bucket right there, and I have taken a piece of scrap plywood here that's nice and straight and flat that I can do my layout and assembly on. So I'm going to lay it out right here. I've got my brad nailer, and I'm going to plug it in because you got to plug that into some air, at least this kind. Got it plugged in, ready to go, and I'm going to start my assembly. So like I said, I'm going to glue and nail this. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back of the first piece here, spread it around a little bit, lay it out. I'm putting a little bit of a gap between these so it looks like a real picnic table. A little bit of a gap right there. I'm going to go ahead, do the same thing with my other one right here. And I am going to then nail these in place. Brad nailer. I'm going to go ahead, just put like a couple little, keep your hands clear. Click, click. I'm going to hold that first one down until you get your first nail in. Keep your gaps even. And you're going to have some problems sometimes when you get some nails that don't drive all the way, but you can go back in a little bit with your hammer and you can take care of that. All right, so we've got this much done. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to start assembling the side pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and speed it up for you so you don't have to watch all the rest of that. And there you have it, boys and girls. You have your very own miniature picnic table that totally works for squirrels. You can take it, put it out in the woods somewhere just where they like to sit. You put it on a picnic table, a porch railing somewhere near your house. Or you can optionally go ahead and take like a board and fasten it to the side here, which is what I'm going to do. You fasten that board to the side, and then you can tie or screw this board into the side of a tree so they can just sit right up there high on the side of the tree. Put some sunflowers, put some nuts, put a corn cob, a dried corn cob, some sort of things that squirrels like to eat, and you have your very own squirrel picnic table. So I hope that you have enjoyed, boys and girls, today's salute to woodworkers and artists and artisans that work with their hands, work with woods, craftsmen. So tune in tomorrow for more as Construction Week continues. See you then.